My name is Nancy Halvorsen, and I work for Pinellas County government. We're a local government located in Florida. We're the 6th largest county in Florida. There's 67 counties total. We are the central IT support for the entire county. We support approximately 148 agencies and departments with their hardware, software, network, the whole thing. In 2014, the architect currently in that position at Pinellas County decided that they needed a tool that gave them some visibility into the environment. They purchased LeanIX, and then for the next 6 months created one fact sheet. During that time period, I was also working for the IT department, and in a completely different capacity. My background is geographic information systems and spatial analysis, locational analysis, BI. And I went to my director kind of simultaneously and told him, you know, I'm really bored. I want to do something new. I want to do something different. And they're like, well, we have this software. How do you feel about moving into EA and doing this? Because I do have a business background as well. And I said, that's great. It sounds wonderful. Sounds like something I could do. And so the little transfer happened, and I ended up being in EA. And my boss at the time said, all right, here you go. And I said, okay, great. Where will I get some of this information from that I need to populate? LeanIX. And they said, well, there's some spreadsheets out there somewhere. There's a CMDB with some CIs out there that we use for service desk, but we don't think it's any good. We think there's a lot of garbage in there. And I was like, great. Okay, so talking about small steps. The first thing that I believed that I needed to do was have buy-in from the top. I needed to present my strategy for filling out the inventory and going forward with the LeanIX software, and make sure that all of the high-level stakeholders bought into it, understood it, and saw some initial, have a lot of faith in me value. So I began to inventory from the CIO down. I talked to the CIOs, I talked to the directors, and then I talked to all the managers. Once I did that, I began to go directly into the inventory. I took 5-year-old spreadsheets. I started looking in the CMDB. Basically what I started doing was tracking all the incidents and requests that were coming in so I could see what was actively being used and what was breaking. So compiling all that, then interviewing with all of our developers, our infrastructure team, our DBA team, our service desk team, and as you can see here, they're all silos. They never talk to each other really unless there was a big problem and someone had to have a meeting of the minds. For the most part, DBAs said, oh, we handle database content and access. We really don't pay attention to what kind of data is in there. We just handle this framework. And the infrastructure guys upstairs were, we just make sure the servers work. We'll spin up a new VM. We'll do this. We'll clean out log files. Well, what's running on these servers? Well, it doesn't really matter. We don't know. I'm like, okay, great. So once I understood what I was dealing with, I decided to do my approach. I hit application support group that managed the commercial off-the-shelf products. I figured that would be my simplest way in. The easiest for me to validate and verify. And it just mushroomed from there. As I was interviewing these folks, they were worried. Well, what do you mean you need to know the life cycle? Are we going to modernize this? Will I not have a job if we change products? Will I not have a job if we go to the cloud? Are they going to cut the infrastructure department in half? I'm like, wow, that's a lot of information to bring in just from simply doing an inventory. One way that I decided to work with that was to give them all access on their inventory. Everybody that I inventoried got viewer access into the system. They didn't get a limited access, they got everything. They got to watch this being built. I also was able to get feedback from them. If I didn't get it right, please tell me. The value in this product and the value in the content is going to be its accuracy. It's very important that we can bank on this, because we've seen what happens when we didn't bank on things. So here, this is a little front page of one of the application fact sheets. Being an enterprise provider, we also have an internal geographic information system department that provides enterprise GIS across all county departments. One of the components for that is ArcGIS Online, software as a service. Essentially a web publisher, if you will. Various applications are published through that. I think there are 28 components to the interface for ArcGIS Online that we've mapped out in LeanIX, varying from SOAP web services to REST, depending on whether things were edited within the web apps that were published. But as you can see here, what I really wanted to point out were all the tags at the top. We decided early on that we would incorporate some of our functionality as tag groups, because we knew in the strategic reporting that would need to happen, people need to see certain things. We have an application improvement plan. Things are tagged for that. We have a strategic alignment. In the enterprise architect group, the virtual architects get together, and every year they decide what the technology and architecture roadmap will be. What's the current state? What's the future state? Everything in our LeanIX workspace is attributed based on where it falls, based on the product version and the life cycle. Does it fall within the current state? Is it already future state? Yay. If it's already future state, that's great. We don't have to go back and revisit it. But we also have current state unaligned for end-of-life products. You can look through some of the others. This one tells you it's a REST web service, who's the primary support agency. We do a version of Gartner's Magic Quadrant on all of our applications. I wrote an application in Python that we plug all these in. We plug in data from our service desk, how many incidents are recorded against an application, how many requests do we get for change in an application, does the application generate revenue, does it serve the public, da-da-da. At the very end of the day, you get a ranking. Should we invest in it? Should we migrate it? Should we tolerate it, or should we eliminate it? Wonderfully, our portfolio says 1 to eliminate and 1 to tolerate out of all the rest of our applications. In other words, if it's slated for elimination, it really doesn't have a business value. And if it's tolerable, it might be technologically great, but nobody's really using it. For the most part, the rest of our inventory is combined of either migrate because something's end of life and it needs to go forward, or it's very well aligned and we're going to invest in it. But we have a significant number of tags. I think I have a total of maybe 38 tag groups across. And that's something that I'm always willing to add to when I work with the business customers. And we're actively looking at the portfolio, asking them, how can you use this tool? How can this tool help you in your job? And they'll tell me, well, it would help if I could get this data or this category, and we can have it reflected in a report. And that's typically how tag groups are born. Because my goal is to, across this group of 148 departments, have them actively use it. It's got to be meaningful to them. When we finished our inventory, it took about a year for the initial pass. We found that 60% of our portfolio was end of life. And you're probably thinking, ooh, 60%, that was a lot. You have to remember, we were a government agency, and the prevailing thought was, we can do our jobs with it. As a customer, they didn't care if it was end of life. And as an IT department, we were not so forward to want to educate our customers, our internal customers, to think about the fact that technology changes so quickly these days. They were still back thinking 10 years ago when they signed an Oracle enterprise license agreement for 20 years that that was okay. We buy a new phone every year. Software as a service gets updated sometimes daily. The whole process of technology has changed, but that was something that, as the enterprise architecture group, we really needed to extend ourselves out to our customers and teach them that, have them understand that concept. Why? So they can budget better, so that they're not introducing risk into our environment by running outdated security. Java, we had Java 6 in our environment. Really? But yes, we did. So where did we go with that? Well, what we decided to do, we decided to use LeanIX as a primary vetting tool for any new work that came in the office. Any requests from any of our customers had to be vetted through here. Is it end of life? Does it exist in the portfolio? What do we need to modernize? Oh, we need to modernize database. We need to modernize the server. We need a totally different solution because it's really not helping them. So vetting through here then allowed us to launch into probably better research for our customers going forward. This is also being used as a giant step toward getting away from physical servers in our environment, lots of virtual machine deployments. We're now going toward cloud wherever we can. So that's also a different way of doing business for the IT department. This is our application roadmap. As you can see, all those little red circles with the lines, those are end of life. And what I decided to show here was basically an application. They've got a really ancient version of Acela Permits Plus. And I dropped down as the IT components underneath it. And you can see, for the most part, they're all end of life too. That, happily to say, they've decided to purchase Acela Civic Platform, which is the one above in the phase-in category. So those all those elements will be replaced by a single new solution. So that's a good thing. That really cleans up the portfolio. Now we're going to flop it. Now we're looking at the IT component roadmap with an application drill down underneath it. And why is this important? This way, if somebody's main focus, say infrastructure, they want to come in and look at Oracle Forms Developer 10, really? Here are all the applications that are dependent on that. And that actual IT component has been end of life for a really long time. So it's not just that your database is end of life or your server version is end of life and it's ridiculously hard to patch it. Your development environment can be end of life as well. And what are all the things? And they never had a way to see it in a concentrated view before. So that was definitely beneficial. Here's our IT component landscape, technology stacks, if you will. You can see on the one side we have cloud, and we've got we're starting to add different elements into our cloud technology stack. But then we have database, and we have development. We've discovered that we had 54 different types of development environments in our environment, just to support a large amount of end-of-life. No wonder people can't get their heads around that. So just having this view alone was super beneficial internally to the IT department, not just our customers. This is a capture of an interface map. And I love this interface map. And some people are like, I can't deal with this. I don't like it. One of the strengths, I believe, of LeanIX is the fact that all of the reports are dynamic. And they're really great for in-person conversation. Because in this particular one, as you move your cursor around, things that are part of an interface are highlighted. And then over here, on this side, here's the main one for ArcGIS Online. But down here are all the other things that interface with it. And it gives you the idea of how the information is communicated back and forth. This is a really great dynamic view for things that are very large, to be able to see them. Here is our application landscape of business capabilities. Business capabilities were not done in Pinellas County. I would have to say nobody really thought about them. Government entities, we have a permitting department, we have HR, we have human services, we have public health, but nobody had ever sat down and said, what do we actually do? What are our business capabilities? So part of what I did as far as the LeanIX deployment was have workshops on business capability. And we brought all the stakeholders in together and we started hammering out business capabilities across the entire enterprise. We did about 4 iterations of it. We decided that we would go as far as 3 tiers on our business capability, no further. And then we started dropping applications under their business capability. And the picture that emerged for us was really, really interesting. Right now you're seeing these all symbolized on their strategic alignment. And I'll just tell you by color. The applications are shown here. Your business capability groups are here. If you are green, you're currently aligned. If you are purple, you are currently unaligned as an application, which means most likely your end of life or one of your supporting IT components is end of life. If you're blue, you're future state aligned. And if you're orange, somehow it would be a new software that was brought into the environment, not vetted, and it doesn't align with anything. And we do have a few of those. So some of our categories, it's a little blurry and I apologize for that. But some of the things that you're looking at here is we have human services. We have, under human services, we have volunteer management and public health. Under customer relationship management, we have that brought down to public involvement, data availability, certain things like that. So it's very helpful to see, do we have a lot of redundancy? Under business application, business process management, we discovered we had 14 different versions of Adobe in the environment across an element that supported 3,500 people. We also had 58 oddball one-off Adobe processing pieces in the environment, which quickly went away once we were able to see how many little one-off things we had in the environment. We do coordinate with software deployment. We're using SCCM, Microsoft, for that. One of our tags that we have here is whitelist. We use LeanIX to be the source of truth for whitelisted applications across the enterprise for new PC deployment, as well as when a customer calls up and says, I need this application on my machine. All the help desk has to do is go right into LeanIX and see, is it already whitelisted? Is it an available thing? And then they can go right to the deployment and give it to the user. So we track lots of different things. Where are we now? Because we are government, it's a little bit different environment than if you're private industry. Our wheels turn extremely slowly, but we've been able to show value with our customers because they've never seen it this way before. And the views that they get from the enterprise architecture department, where simple and colorful, business understands it. And that's really important because we've taken something that in enterprise architecture is typically extremely complex. And yes, because we work in enterprise architecture, our brains accept that and we're comfortable with it. Our business partners are not. But they still need to understand the value. Like I said, one of the greatest values for them has been we do an annual budget process. They never knew that now they can sit down with their business relationship manager, view their portfolio and see exactly what's pending to go end of life in the next 2 years. They can budget for that, where before it was a surprise, or they just wouldn't deal with it and they would just want to run outdated product. So there's so many examples of how having this product in our environment is beneficial to us. It's a different way of working, hasn't been easy. I teased that I'm going to put a URL on everyone's desktop with an icon this big for LeanIX. And every time they use it, that will get smaller. It's kind of an inside joke. but it's to remind them there's something new, there's something helpful for you. We have people subscribing to their fact sheets now where they weren't before, they were afraid to. Will my boss see that I subscribed to something? Will my boss see that I commented on something? I'm like, absolutely, go ahead and do it anyway, it doesn't matter. There was a confidence level that needed to occur, but that has happened as well. And we've also spun up a separate workspace. We had, through some politics in Pinellas County, they decided that they wanted to split out a boutique group for a separate IT support group, even though we do enterprise. This was to be custom application support for a group of departments. So we spun up a second LeanIX instance for them. They have their own workspace. I'm still an administrator on that. I'm doing the training for that. I'm ensuring that we're doing compliance between the versions. At some point we may go away from that and I'll come in on single sign-on and just have different views. But initially, to get them going and get them used to it, they have their own. And something that was mentioned before that was really important. Right after we started the inventory, the initial one, we were subject to a Pci audit. We had finally crossed the threshold of credit card gateway transactions to the dollar amount that said, guess what, you get to be audited every year. And there was a general panic that went through the entire IT department because no one knew where PCI data was held. No one knew for sure, at least not to respond to an audit, where the payment gateways were located, what applications were speaking with them, and were we really housing any PCI data locally? No one could say. And I raised my hand and I said, well, I just did the inventory. Guess what? I put a tag of PCI in everywhere it exists. It's in your portfolio. You can pull your reports. You can see the interfaces with the payment gateways. You can see what databases actually contain any information. And by the way, I did HIPAA, PII, CJIS, which is your criminal justice information. We did law enforcement data. I made that all part of the inventory. And when they realized that it was right there at their fingertips, it was like, phew, right. I think we should maintain this. And so now they're starting to think about how they work within the IT department differently. And I think I'd wrap it up with that. I think it's not just how our customers benefit from this. It was within our own IT department really thinking about how do we do business as an IT department? Are we applying business capabilities to ourselves? And how are we doing that? So I'll just kind of leave it with that. And if you had any questions, I could take them.